Mike, you there?
I'm there. I'm here.
All right, Krishna. Sorry about that. My computer was frozen for it was just saying like you were joining. I don't know. Sometimes this thing is really slow.
Well, I accidentally on the first time it popped up, it says like either leave meeting or got it. Like it
Oh,
says like, recording going on, and for whatever reason I clicked leave meeting. So
oh, okay. That might have been that. Oh, you got your shelter T-shirt on.
yeah,
Who were the
well,
original members of the shelter group?
Ray Capo. So it was Ray Capo Raghunath. Was the
Raghunath.
original member.
He's the kind of the initiating or the instructing spiritual teacher of Ashley O'Hara.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the you know organizers of the Krishna Kirtan Center, or Pittsburgh Kirtan Center as it's now called. Yeah,
he was the original member. The first album that came out was just friends of his that played, but when they really got started, it was primarily like when they were really going, it was all devotees who were in the band. Paramananda Das, Akendra Das, the person who does that.
Akendra,
yeah,
was he the comedian?
He did not the one who did just like the straight comedy. He's the one who does that. Oh heck, there's something like Das Brahmachari,
Niyama Das Brahmachari.
Yeah.
He is a comedian. Come on, give me a break. That guy is funny as hell.
Yeah,
he cracks me up so much. I actually recorded him in 2016. He did a whole bit, right before Christmas, because he said, he took this, he has this like pseudo-European accent, and so it was so hard to understand that I had to subtitle all his things, He would say, he would talk about Krishna West, he said, no, the Krishna West, you always pronounce the V with W's with a V. And he said, this will be more acceptable to Krishna consciousness in the West if you have a West. And he'd have a vest on. He was kind of making fun of that whole thing. But he's awesome, man. I really liked his commentary right before the 2016 election. He was talking about the different candidates, and he said sometimes as devotees we think that we're mode of goodness, we want to make the world better place, so I am voting for Bernie. He said, but no, it's not to make the world a better place. He said, you put a one of those hanging pine scent things on your car. He said if you put that in hell, it's not going to like this. It's not going to get rid of the smell or the burning of the hell. And so he said, it's this material world is it's like certified by Krishna as dukkhalayam shashvatam, temporary and miserable. You're not going to make it better by voting for this person or that person. It's just like I get in trouble sometimes. My brother was a big Bernie the supporter in Madison, Wisconsin, which is kind of progressive town. And he was saying that the whole world is waking up, man. It's like there's 15,000 people at Dane County Coliseum. And I said, well, yeah, but in order to, to be dreaming, it's like he said, it's like a dream. He said, in order to dream, you still have to be sleeping, And he just like started ripping into me. He's kind of envious, and he didn't like what I was saying. He said it was like defaming the entire family. That's why it's not good for devotees to get involved in any kind of argument with any kind of politics or religion, anything, unless they actually agree with you, because that can be like a touchy thing.
Oh, sure.
Okay, we're in the Bhagavad-gītā. I think we're on text 36. Hold on a second here. Does that sound right to you?
That sounds right.
Text
let's see what
136. Wait, I want to get into the advanced view here so we can go one by one. Maybe we'll finish chapter 1 today, hopefully. And get into the whole chapter 2 is like the meat of it, It's like what you said about the summary. Yeah. Prabhupada put everything into, the introduction. Similarly, everything is in the second chapter. everything in the Bhagavad-gītā is like the contents of the Gita summarized. That's the name of the chapter, you know. So, whoops. Chapter 1, hold on. Default view, advanced view.
Were you at risk over the weekend with exposure down in New Vrindavan?
I didn't go there.
Okay.
I was fortunate. I didn't participate in any of the kirtan, you know. I was kind of busy, you know. So unfortunately, I just had my booster shot, you know. So, but I noticed that a lot of people weren't wearing masks on the thing. And I was just looking at that. I said, I'm not going to go in there, you know.
I was debating going down on Sunday, and when I saw some of the stuff from Saturday, I saw the same thing, a lot of maskless, and I just thought, nah.
Yeah, this is not a good idea. I mean, you know, I don't want to end up like Colin Powell.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know who Colin Powell is. You know,
Yeah.
he recently died of COVID complications, even though he was fully vaccinated.
He's fully vaccinated, yeah.
And I'm the same way. You know, I've got all kinds of comorbidities. You know, I'm overweight. I'm got diabetes type 2. I have hypertension, high blood pressure, you know. So I'm not going to mess around with this, because you could have a breakthrough infection and it could be all over, you know. I plan on reading some more. I like to read. Mm-hmm. My friend said, if you keep reading like this, you're going to read your way back to God. And I said, okay, I'm ready. So text 36, I guess I'll start, and we'll take turns after that. You can read the purport after I read the Sanskrit synonyms and translation.
Sure.
Papam eva shreyad asman hatvaitan atad yina tasam narha vayam hantum datarastran sabandavan janam hi katam hatva shukina swayamadava. Synonyms: papam, vices; eva, certainly; ashrayat, must come upon; asamam, or asman, us; hatva, by killing; etan, all these; atayina, aggressors; tasmat, therefore; na, never; arha, deserving; vayam, we; hantum, to kill; datarastram, the sons of Dhritarashtra; sambandhavan, along with friends; swajanam, kinsman; he, certainly; katam, how; hatva, by killing; sukhina, happiness; swayam, will we become; madhava, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune. Translation. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune? How can we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? See, like Arjuna is like making up tons of excuses here. That's all he's doing. He doesn't want to fight. He's just making a lot of excuses. Krishna had to sit there and listen to it all. You go ahead with the purport.
Okay. Purport. According to Vedic injunctions, there are 6 kinds of aggressors: a poison giver, one who sets fire to the house, one who attacks with deadly weapons, one who plunders riches, one who occupies another's land, and one who kidnaps a wife. Such aggressors are at once to be killed, and no sin is incurred by killing such aggressors. Such killing of aggressors is quite befitting any ordinary man. But Arjuna was not an ordinary person. He was saintly by character, and therefore he wanted to deal with them in saintliness. This kind of saintliness, however, is not for a Kshatriya. Although a responsible man in the administration of a state is required to be saintly, he should not be cowardly. For example, Lord Rama was so saintly that people even now are anxious to live in the kingdom of Lord Rama, Rama Raja. But Lord Ram never showed any cowardice. Ravana was an aggressor against Ram because Ravana kidnapped Ram's wife Sita, but Lord Ram gave him sufficient lessons, unparalleled in the history of the world. In Arjuna's case, however, one should consider the special type of aggressors, namely his own grandfather, own teacher, friends, sons, grandsons, etc. Because of them, Arjuna thought that he should not take the severe steps necessary against ordinary aggressors. Besides that, saintly persons are advised to forgive. Such injunctions for saintly persons are more important than any political emergency. Arjuna considered that rather than kill his own kinsmen for political reasons, it would be better to forgive them on grounds of religion and saintly behavior. He did not, therefore, consider such killing profitable simply for the matter of temporary bodily happiness. After all, kingdoms and pleasures derived therefrom are not permanent. So why should he risk his life and eternal salvation by killing his own kinsman? Arjuna's addressing of Krishna as Madhava, or the husband of the goddess of fortune, is also significant in this connection. He wanted to point out to Krishna that, as the husband of the goddess of fortune, he should not induce Arjuna to take up a matter which would ultimately bring about misfortune. Krishna, however, never brings misfortune to anyone, to say nothing of his devotees.
Yeah, Krishna didn't agree with Arjuna's position of nonviolence. Prabhupada often talked about Gandhi, who said that Gandhi used the Bhagavad-gītā as an example of nonviolence. Krishna is not nonviolent. he arranged that whole thing. And so, on his own behalf, Ram didn't show any cowardice. And I was just reading about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, the what do you call it? Prakrita Sahajas, the people who imitate the advanced devotees, they're just an imitation. But they used to criticize Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami is a little bit younger than Rupa and Sanatan. And one time Rupa and Sanatan were challenged by this big scholar, right? Who wanted to defeat them both, because he was an expert logician. And so he challenged them. And instead of agreeing to battle with them, with this person, they just signed a letter of defeat. They took the humble position and said, I don't want anything to do with it. But then Jiva Goswami heard about this, and the same person approached him to get him to sign the letter of defeat. But on his own behalf, Jiva Goswami wouldn't do that. But because he wanted to defend his brothers, not his brothers, but his Goswami associates there in Vrindavan, he was a very scholarly person. He defeated this person. And so all the Prakrita Sahajas, they criticize him for not being humble. Everybody will always try to find some kind of excuse or character flaw. But the thing is, he wasn't really criticizing him on behalf of himself. He defeated them on behalf of the Goswamis, on behalf of Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. So you can use anger, you can use our philosophy. We don't really want to argue or criticize anyone. But the thing is, if someone else is attacked, then we can use these things to rectify the situation. If a Vaishnava or if Krishna himself is attacked, Lord Chaitanya says, Trinadapi Sishana Torapi Sishana Manna Manena Kirtnasada. You're supposed to wear that around your neck. And I actually do. See this medallion here? And Krishnadas Kaviraj said you're supposed to be humbler than a blade of grass, respect all other people. But Lord Chaitanya, by his own behavior, when Nityananda was attacked by Jagai and Madhai, he wanted to kill them. He was ready to kill them. And only because Lord Nityananda talked him out of it did he spare their lives. And so for someone else, you're ready to act like fire. But for ourselves, we don't care so much if somebody's attacking us or even physically attacking us. I mean, Haridas Thakur was beaten in 21 marketplaces. He was so tolerant. And Jesus Christ himself, so tolerant. He said, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing, So that's the standard behavior for ourselves. But when another Vaishnava is attacked, we have to take steps, and use our anger in Krishna's service. Like what's his name? Hanuman. He was really mad. And so he set the whole town of Lanka on fire. So that's an example. Krishna appreciates that kind of use of, everything can be used in Krishna's service. It's just a matter of, getting the direction and understanding what is the distinction between what Krishna's service is and we don't really care too much on our own behalf because we don't want any respect, or we don't want any kind of admiration or distinction or profit, but we want to glorify and protect the devotees. So that's our position. Why don't you go ahead and read the Sanskrit, and I'll read the rest of it.
Yadi api etena pasyanti labhopayata chetasaha kulukshaya kirtam dosham mitra drohe cha patakam katham na jnanyam asmabi papad asman nirvartitam kulukshaya kirtam dosham kapasya bir janardana. Synonyms: Yudi, if, api, even, ite, nithe, na, do not, pashyanti, see, lobha, by greed, upata, overpowered, chetasa, their hearts, kulukshaya, in killing the family, kirtam, done, dosham, fault, mitra dohe, in quarreling with friends, cha, also, patakam, sinful reactions, katham, why, na, should not, nyanyam, be known, asmabi, by us, papat, from sins, asmat, these, nirvartikam, to cease, kulukshaya, in the destruction of a dynasty, kirtam, done, dosham, crime, prapashyabdi, prashapyabdi, by those who can see, Janardana, O Krishna. Translation: O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin?
Report: Kshatriya is not supposed to refuse to battle or gamble when he's so invited by some rival party. Under such an obligation, Arjuna could not refuse to fight, because he had been challenged by the party of Duryodhana. In this connection, Arjuna considered that the other party might be blind to the effects of such a challenge. Arjuna, however, could see the evil consequence and could not accept the challenge. Obligation is actually binding when the effect is good, but when the effect is otherwise, then no one can be bound. Considering all these pros and cons, Arjuna decided not to fight. I'll read the Sanskrit, and you can read the purport. Kulakshaya pranasyanti kula dharma sanatana dharma naste kulam kritsnam ardharma bibhivati yata. Synonyms: Kulakshaya, in destroying the family, pranasyanti, become vanquished. Kula dharma, the family tradition. Sanatana, eternal. Dharma, religion. Naste, being destroyed. Kulam, family. Kritsnam, whole. Adharma, irreligion. Abhivavati, transforms. Uta, it is said. Translation: With the destruction of the dynasty, eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. Go ahead.
Purport: In the system of Varnashram institution, there are many principles of religious traditions to help members of the family grow properly and attain spiritual values. The elder members are responsible for such purifying processes in the family, beginning from birth to death. But on the death of the elder members, such family traditions of purification may stop, and the remaining younger family members may develop irreligious habits and thereby lose their chance for spiritual salvation. Therefore, for no purpose should the elder members of the family be slain.
It's like really funny, I mean, it was such a perfect system back then, the elder members of the family were respected. They were the leaders of the family. Now you just put the old men in the old age homes, or, euthanasia. Just kill them, that's what they said at the beginning of the pandemic, these old people, they're no use to the economy anyway. So we should open everything up and let them die. Yep. They should be willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of the economy, which is like typical Kali Yuga statement. Yeah. Go ahead with the with the Sanskrit then.
Dharma Vibhavat Krishna Pradushyanti Kula Striya Strishu Dushtasu Varneshneya Jayate Varna Sankara. Synonyms: Adharma, irreligion. Abhivavat, having become predominant. Krishna, O Krishna. Pradushyanti, become polluted. Kula Striya, family ladies. Strishu, by the womanhood. Dushtasu, being so polluted. Varneshneya, O descendant of Vrishni. Jayate comes into being. Varna Sankara, unwanted progeny. Translation: when irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vishnu, comes unwanted progeny.
Purport: good population in human society is the basic principle for peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress in life. The Varnashram religion's principles are so designed so that the good population would prevail in society for general spiritual progress of state and community. Such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. As children are very prone to be misled, women are very prone to degradation. Therefore, both children and women require protection by the elder members of the family. By being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled into adultery. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. So the different family traditions of religious activities should always engage them in their chastity and devotion will give birth to a good population eligible for participating in the Varnashram system. On the failure of such Varnashram dharma, naturally the women will become free to act and mix with men, and thus adultery is indulgent at the risk of unwanted population. Irresponsible men may also provoke adultery in society, and thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. I mean, at first glance, a statement like this would appear to be like misogynistic, women are not very intelligent. Actually, my father, he visited in 1978 or something like that. He visited the farm. It was like a Sunday afternoon after the Sunday feast. And my father, he actually was kind of a feminist himself. He was like a liberal guy. He used to take me in when I was a teenager to different kinds of anti-war demonstrations in Vietnam, during the Vietnam era. And he actually went in the back of the Buhulaban farmhouse temple building and stood with the women in defiance of, because the women were in the back and the men were in the front. And so all the women were just looking at him, they thought he was a nice guy, but he said, oh, what is he doing back here, And I thought, this guy is just like making a fool of himself in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But, and after the feast, my father just went up to the temple president, Kuladri at the time. He must have had a long day because Kuladri wasn't tolerating it very much, and he wasn't very diplomatic in his answer. But my father asked him, how come you say women are less intelligent? Why do you make them stay in the back of the temple? Blah, 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 blah. And Kuladri said, the only reason you say this, his questions, is because you have a mind like a woman. It's just not a very good thing to say. And so he came storming me into the mold shop where I was working in Bulaban. He said, I've just been very insulted by your so-called temple president. And so that's not a good way to preach, but you got to be careful, I mean, Prabhupada actually changed a lot of things, everybody was criticizing him when he was allowing, the mixing of men and women, but you can't transplant Vedic culture into America. America is like rock and roll, blue jeans, and suicide in the 60s. You can't say, okay, all of a sudden we have to completely mix and not. So he allowed men and women to preach. And if you're engaged in preaching work, men and women are equal. They're just as good as their brothers. Prabhupada said that. They're just as good as their brothers. And even Krishna said that, Striya Vaishyas Tata Shudras, the women, the Shudras, the workers, they can all reach the supreme destination. So there's no impediment. Women may not be very easily understand easily the Vedic philosophy because men are more, analytical, like Narada Muni, when he was preaching to Prahlad Maharaj's mother, Prahlad Maharaj was in the womb of his mother. Prahlad Maharaj remembered everything Narada Muni said, even though he was in the womb, but his mother forgot everything, So that's the difference between men and women, just by their gender, they're not very philosophically inclined. So they might not take to Krishna consciousness, but they're also soft-hearted. So there's a lot of advantages in the womanhood. And Prabhupada wouldn't, just because, he says these things, a lot of women, especially if they're really feminists, they hate what Prabhupada said. my father was an astronomer in Vermont, and one of his colleagues was really into India, and she went there every year. She always wore like a Punjabi outfit and everything. She loved India, but she hated Prabhupada's books just because all these statements, women are less intelligent, they're attracted by demonic people are attracted by women. It's like, if you look in the back of the Bhagavad-gītā, under women as an index, you'll see like all kinds of horrible things. But, you have to view it from the viewpoint that it's just the body, it's not really, not everybody's equal, but the thing is, we're all equal on the basis of the soul, Yeah. So you have to look at it.
This is, every time, I read this is one of the places I still, I cringe at, because I do. My own experience, does not match up with, those statements there. And I understand, like so much about like, the real equality is when we're all, recognizing one another on the spiritual platform.
Exactly.
But even within the material conception, that's not been my experience. It's one of those things that even within the realm of the philosophy, I don't find
sometimes I would read to my wife, and my wife is a feminist, and I'd have to like stop and skip over a sentence or two, because I didn't want to offend her, So the thing is, you have to be really careful in presenting philosophy. And Prabhupada came from the Vedic culture, and the thing is, I don't think he was intentionally misogynistic or anything. He even said, so many times, he said women are just as good as their brothers. And so these less intelligent people who are criticizing the mixing of men and women, no sannyasi ever engaged in a wedding ceremony of their disciples in India. Prabhupada did that. He also gave women Brahman initiation. He was so much, willing to adjust the circumstances for preaching purposes, and it was successful. And
even allowing, even with the, the Yamuna's recording, being played in temples, having a female lead.
Yeah, they would criticize that.
Yeah,
actually, they can't even play that because it's copyrighted by Apple. Even though Malati, who was there and played on the album,
performed on it,
she banged the gong at the end of the 12 into prayers, and Genevieve Harrison, George Harrison's wife, doesn't have a problem with it. It's only Apple, it's completely ridiculous, but that's just the way that the corporate world works, So they actually block out. If they're streaming it anywhere in the world on Mayapur.tv, they block out the audio portion of that song automatically because it triggers some kind of thing. They don't. Facebook doesn't block out, any kind of other, like hate and violence and politicians lying, but they will block out the Govinda prayers. It's just ridiculous, Let me read the Sanskrit here. Shankara Nadakavaya Kayava Vya Kula Granam Kulasicha Patanti Pitarohyesham Lupta Pindo Dakakriya. Synonyms: Shankara, such unwanted children, Narakaya, make for hellish life. Eva, certainly, Kula Grananam, for those who are killers of the family, Kulasya, for the family, Cha, also Patanti, fall down, Pitara, forefathers, he, certainly, Asham, of them, Lupta, stopped, Pinda, of offerings of food, Odaka, and water, Kriya, performances. Translation: an increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life for both the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performers for offering them food and water are entirely stopped.
Purport.
You read the first paragraph, and I'll start with the Sanskrit.
According to the rules and regulations of fruitive activities, there is a need to offer periodical food and water to the forefathers of the family. This offering is performed by worship of Vishnu, because eating the remnants of food offered to Vishnu can deliver one from all kinds of sinful reactions. Sometimes the forefathers may be suffering from various types of sinful reactions, and sometimes some of them cannot even acquire a gross material body and are forced to remain in subtle bodies as ghosts. Thus, when remnants of prasadam food are offered to forefathers by descendants, the forefathers are released from ghostly or other kinds of miserable life. Such help rendered to forefathers is a family tradition, and those who are not in devotional life are required to perform such rituals. One who is engaged in a devotional life is not required to perform such actions. Simply by performing devotional service, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers from all kinds of miseries. It is stated in the Bhagavatam 11:5.
Go ahead and read the rest of it.
Okay. Tavarshi Bhutupati Nirnam Pritnirnam Na Kinkara Nayam Runi Cha Rajan Sarvatmana Ya Sharanam Sarayam Kata Mukundam Parihritya Kartam. Anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligation, and is taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither dues nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by the performance of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this just reminds me of that whole, watering the root rather than the leaves, if you...
Yeah. Well, it's actually, when it says you have to perform sacrifices for Vishnu, otherwise you get entangled in the material world. Whatever we do, we're always entangled. It doesn't matter if it's plus or if it's positive or negative. If you do something positive for somebody, or if somebody does something positive for you, it has to be repaid. If the forefathers give you something that you're benefiting from, you have to repay them. If somebody does you a favor, gives you some money, then you have to come back in your next life and pay them back. But because, the process of sacrifice means that you're surrendering to Krishna, you no longer have the obligation to do that, any of that, because all of your obligations are automatically nullified. Like all your sinful reactions, as soon as you surrender to Krishna, Krishna says, Sarvadharma Prityaja Mamikam Sharanamaja. Abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender unto me. I will protect you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So whatever reactions or karmic reactions, karma or akarma or vikarma, whether positive or negative, are automatically stopped when we surrender to Krishna. And we're not involved in any kind of, whatever reactions we're getting from our fruitive activities are nullified when they're burned up by the process of surrender. So we don't have any more obligations to anybody. It's just like a get out of jail free card, So we don't have any more obligation if we are totally surrendered to Krishna. Of course, we do have to be totally surrendered. Otherwise, we're kind of like in a mixed position. We may not finish our business in this lifetime. But if we are totally surrendered, then, Krishna takes care of all these things. So why don't you read the next Sanskrit and translation and everything?
Shayir ete kula gananam varna shankara karakai utse dayanti jati dharma kula dharmascha shashvata. Synonyms: doshai, by such faults; etai, all these; kulu ganan, of the destroyers of the family; varna shankara, of unwanted children; karakai, which are causes; utsadyante, are devastated; jati dharma, community projects; kulu dharma, family traditions; cha, also; shashvata, eternal. Translation: by the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. Okay, I'll read the purport. Community projects are the four orders of human society, combined with family welfare activities as they are set forth by the instruction of Sanatana Dharma or Varnashram Dharma, are designed to enable the human being to attain his ultimate salvation. Therefore, the breaking of Sanatana Dharma tradition by irresponsible leaders of society brings about chaos in that society, and consequently people forget the aim of life, Vishnu. Such leaders are called blind, and persons who follow such leaders are sure to be led into chaos.
Text 43. Utsana kula dharmanam manusyan janardana narake niyatambasho bibya babatiti and ashushrama. Synonyms. Utsana, spoiled. Kula dharmanam, of those who have the family traditions. Manusyanam, of such men. Janardana, O Krishna. Narake, in hell. Niyatam, always. Vasha, residence. Bhavati, it so becomes. Iti, thus. Anushushrama, I have heard, by disciplic succession. Translation. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed always dwell in hell. But
Purport. Arjuna bases his argument not on his own personal experience, but on what he has heard from the authorities. That is the way of receiving real knowledge. One cannot reach the real point of factual knowledge without being helped by the right person who is already established in that knowledge. There is a system in the Varnashram institution by which before death one has to undergo the process of atonement for his sinful activities. One who is always engaged in sinful activities must utilize the process of atonement called prayaschita. Without doing so, one surely will be transferred to hellish planets to undergo miserable lives as the result of sinful activities.
you got to read the Sanskrit.
Aho bata mahat papam kartum vyavisati vayam yad raja sukho lobhena antum svajanam udyate. Synonyms. Aho, alas. Bata, how strange it is. Mahat, great. Papam, sins. Kartum, to perform. Yavasita, have decided. Vayam, we. Yat, because. Raja sukha lobhena, driven by greed for royal happiness. Antum, to kill. Svajanam, kinsman. Udyata, trying. Translation. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen.
Purport. Driven by selfish motives, one may be inclined to such sinful acts as the killing of one's own brother, father, or mother, or uncle, maybe in the case of Kim Jong-un. He killed his own, I think he fed him to the dogs. There are many such instances in the history of the world, but Arjuna, being a saintly devotee of the Lord, is always conscious of moral principles and therefore takes care to avoid such activities. Yadi mam apratikaram ashastram shastrapranaya dartarastra rane hanyus tanme kshema taran bhavet. Synonyms. Yadi, even if me pratikaram, without being resistant, ashastram, without being fully equipped, shastra panaya, with those weapons in hand, Dhritarashtra, the sons of Dhritarashtra, Rane, on the battlefield, Hanyu, may kill, that may, for me, Kshama-taram, better, Bhavet would be. Translation. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield.
Purport. It is the custom, according to Kshatriya fighting principles, that an unarmed and unwilling foe should not be attacked. Arjuna however, decided that even if attacked by the enemy in such an awkward position, he would not fight. He did not consider how much the other party was bent upon fighting. All these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness, resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord.
Go ahead and read the Sanskrit.
Sanjaya Uvacha. Evam Uktvarjuna Sankhye Rathopathsha Apavishat Vissurja Sa Sharanam Chapam Shoka Samvigna Manasa. Synonyms. Sanjaya Uvacha, Sanjaya said, Evam, thus, Uktava, saying, Arjuna, Sankhye, in the battlefield, Ratha, of the chariot, Upaste, on the seat, Upavaishat, sat down again, Vishrija, putting aside, Sasharam, along with arrows, Chapam, the bow, Shoka, by lamentation, Samvigna, distressed, Manasa, within the mind. Translation. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief.
Purport. While observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, leaving aside his bow and arrows. Such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. I'm glad we finished this. It's 6:42. We went over 2 minutes, but I'm not sure exactly when they cut you off on these things. But thank you very much for participating again, and I'll see you on Friday.
Actually, Friday I won't be able to make it. I have
okay.
A family thing going on.
I'll see you on Monday then.
Okay.
Cool. And I don't know if David Nunda is going to be at the. He's getting tested. Everybody in the farm has to be tested. Actually,
yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to go tomorrow just because of the kind of cross pollination.
Well, I mean, like he was leading he was leading the one of the sessions in the 24-hour kirtan, and he was sitting right next to the next girl who was up next to him, was also leading after him, and she asked him to sit in with her playing a guitar, and so she didn't have a mask, and a lot of other people in the room didn't have a mask. But he's gonna he's gonna get tested tomorrow morning. I don't know if they have quick testing here in Pittsburgh, but he's coming tomorrow, so I don't know if he's gonna be positive. He was gonna stay over here overnight, but I can't even allow that because if he doesn't have the results back, because my wife is a nurse and she could contaminate all of her patients. So you have to be really careful. That's why they shut the whole farm down for this, So I don't think I'm going to, come even if he's positive, I don't think I'm going to go. But
my plan was to give it a week and, kind of let it settle before going back.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's going to be tested in New Vrindavan, though. Everybody should be vaccinated. But, I made my case in the Krishna Kirtan Center. I mean, you still have in a closed enclosure like that, you still have a risk, but you just have to be as careful as possible. Anyway, thank you very much, and we'll see you Monday.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.